There are places in America where the highways narrow to two lanes, where the streetlights end at the edge of town, and where everyone knows everyone else's name. Small towns, quiet towns, places where nothing much ever happens except when it does. Tonight, we're going to visit 5 such places, 5 communities tucked away in the heartland, where people vanished without explanation, without warning, without a trace. These are not stories of resolution, but of mystery. Not tales of answers, but of questions that linger like morning fog over empty fields. Let yourself settle in, let your breathing slow, as we begin our journey through these vanishing points. These moments when the ordinary became inexplicable, when the familiar became strange, and when small towns were forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that some mysteries may never be solved. Our first story takes us to Nebraska, to a town called Hartwell, population 1,247, where the autumn of 1987 brought something more than falling leaves and early frost. It brought a disappearance that would haunt this community for decades to come. The Bluebird Diner sat on Main Street, a chrome-sided relic from the 1950s with turquoise vinyl booths and a counter worn smooth by thousands of elbows. It was the kind of place where coffee was always fresh, where the pie was homemade, and where Carolyn Mercer had worked the evening shift for 11 years. 11 years of pouring coffee, taking orders, remembering how people liked their eggs. 11 years of familiar faces and comfortable routines. But on October 14, 1987, Carolyn Mercer finished her shift at 10 p.m., just like always. She untied her apron, just like always. She said goodnight to the cook, just like always. She stepped out into the cool autumn night and was never seen again. Let that image settle in your mind. The diner's neon sign casting blue light onto the empty sidewalk, the distant sound of a truck on the highway, the streetlights creating small pools of amber glow in the darkness, and Carolyn, in her waitress uniform, pulling her cardigan tight against the October chill, walking toward a parking lot where her car waited. One moment there, the next moment, gone. Carolyn's car was found in the diner parking lot the next morning, locked, untouched, exactly where she'd left it. Her purse was inside, her keys in the ignition. The newspaper she'd bought that morning was on the passenger seat, still folded, still unread. Everything was there, except Carolyn. The investigation began the way all investigations do in small towns, with neighbors and questions, with searches and theories, with hope that gradually, slowly, inevitably fades into something else, something quieter, something more resigned. They searched the fields surrounding Hartwell, acres and acres of harvested corn stubble stretching to the horizon. They dragged the creek that ran behind the grain elevator. They interviewed everyone who'd been in the diner that night, everyone who'd driven past, everyone who might have seen anything, remembered anything, noticed anything out of the ordinary. But there was nothing out of the ordinary. That was the strange part. That was the unsettling part. It was just another Tuesday evening in Hartwell, Nebraska. Just another shift at the Bluebird Diner. Just another autumn night when the temperature dropped and the stars came out and the highway hummed with distant traffic. Carolyn's daughter Jennifer was 23 at the time, living 2 towns over, working as a bank teller. She'd talked to her mother that afternoon, a brief conversation about nothing in particular. Dinner plans for Sunday, a recipe Jennifer wanted to try. Her mother's voice had been normal, cheerful, ordinary. There had been no hint of worry, no suggestion of fear, no indication that anything was wrong or about to go wrong. That's what haunts Jennifer most, even now, decades later, the ordinariness of that last conversation. The way her mother had said, "I love you," the same way she always did, casual and warm, not knowing it would be the last time, not knowing she had only hours left in the world as a known quantity, as a present person, as someone who could be reached and touched and spoken to. Let your mind rest on this mystery for a moment. Let it settle over you like a soft blanket. There's something almost peaceful in the not knowing, in the way these stories refuse resolution, in the way they remain suspended in time forever that October night, forever that moment between presence and absence. Our second story takes us north and east to a town in Wisconsin called Copper Falls, where the main street slopes gently downhill and the hardware store has been in the same family for 3 generations. Walter Gunderson was 57 years old in the spring of 1992, a widower, a Lutheran, a man known for his fairness and his memory for every bolt size and paint color in his crowded store. He opened at 8 every morning, except Sunday. He closed at 6 every evening except Saturday, when he stayed open until 7. For 32 years, this had been his rhythm, his routine, his life. On May 3, 1992, a Saturday, Walter closed the store at 7 p.m. The last customer, a young man buying wood screws for a fence repair, remembered Walter being in good spirits, talking about the fishing opener coming up, about the weather finally warming up, about the lilacs blooming early this year. Walter rang up the screws, made change, wished the young man good luck with his fence. Then he began his closing routine, sweeping the floor, counting the register, turning off lights one by one from the back of the store toward the front. But something interrupted that routine. Something stopped Walter Gunderson mid-task, mid-thought, mid-life. Because the next morning, a Sunday, Mrs. Eleanor Pritchard, walking to early service at St. Mark's Lutheran Church, noticed that the hardware store's front door was standing open. Not just unlocked, but open. And there, dangling from the lock, were Walter's keys. The store was empty. The register was open but not emptied. Money still inside, bills still neatly arranged. The lights in the back were off, the lights in the front were on. Walter's jacket hung on its usual hook. His coffee mug sat on the counter by the register, still half full, long since gone cold. And Walter was gone. Simply gone. Breathe slowly as you picture this scene. The morning light slanting through the hardware store windows. The smell of sawdust and machine oil. The rows of tools and supplies standing silent witness to an interruption, an incompletion, an ending without conclusion. The sheriff's department in Copper Falls was small, Sheriff Tom Hendricks and 3 deputies covering the whole county. But they worked the case hard, the way you do when it's someone you know, someone you've bought nails from, someone who sponsored your daughter's softball team. They checked Walter's house, neat, undisturbed, bed made from the morning, dishes washed. They checked his bank accounts, no unusual withdrawals, no signs of planning or preparation. They talked to his family, his friends, his customers, his neighbors, and everyone said the same thing. Walter was content. Walter was steady. Walter was the last person who would simply walk away from his life, from his store, from his routine. In the years since these disappearances, theories have emerged and faded like smoke. Some people in Hartwell believed Carolyn met with foul play, that someone had been waiting in the parking lot, that something terrible and swift had happened in those few yards between the diner door and her car. Others thought she'd chosen to disappear, to start a new life somewhere far from Nebraska, though no one could say why she'd leave behind her daughter, her mother, her entire life without a word. In Copper Falls, some whispered about Walter's heart. Maybe he'd had a medical episode, wandered off confused, collapsed somewhere the searches didn't reach. Others noted the open door, the keys in the lock, and wondered if he'd seen something or someone outside, if he'd stepped out to investigate and encountered something he couldn't have anticipated. But theories are just theories, and in small towns, theories fade, but mysteries endure. Let's visit our third town now, a place called Ashford in southern Missouri, where the Gasconade River curves through limestone bluffs, and the population hovers around 800 souls. In November of 1995, a 16-year-old girl named Sarah Beth Colton walked out a Friday night football game and disappeared into the darkness. She'd been with friends, cheering in the stands, bundled in her school jacket against the November cold. The game ended, the lights went down, the crowd dispersed into the parking lot in that happy, tired way crowds do. Sarah Beth told her friends she was getting a ride home with her older brother. Her brother said he thought she'd gotten a ride with friends. In that small miscommunication, in that moment of assumption and confusion, Sarah Beth vanished. Her body was never found. No witnesses came forward. No demands were made, no ransom requested, no explanation given. The town of Ashford held vigils, distributed flyers, organized searches that combed the river banks and the dense woods that pressed close to the high school. But the woods kept their secrets, if they held any secrets at all. And Sarah Beth's parents, Ron and Marie Colton, were left with that most unbearable of conditions, not knowing if they should hope or grieve, remember or let go, wait, or accept. Let this story wash over you gently. There's no need to solve it, no need to reach for answers. Just let it exist, the way it exists for the people of Ashford, as a permanent question mark, as a name spoken softly, as a reminder that even in the safest seeming places, even among crowds and friends and familiar faces, a person can step from light into darkness and never return. Our fourth case takes us to Montana, to a town called Willow Creek at the edge of the plains where they meet the mountains. Population 638, one stoplight, two churches, a post office that's also a grocery store. And in February of 1998, a school teacher named Michael Reeves, who taught fourth grade and coached Little League and played piano at the Methodist Church every Sunday. Michael was 34, unmarried, devoted to his students and his community. On a Tuesday afternoon, he finished his school day, straightened the desks in his classroom, wrote the next day's assignments on the board, and drove home to the small house he rented on Pine Street. His landlady, Mrs. Hoffman, saw his truck pull in around 4 p.m. She waved from her window. He waved back. That was the last confirmed sighting of Michael Reeves. Wednesday morning, his truck was still in the driveway, but Michael didn't show up for school. The principal called his house. No answer. She drove to Pine Street at lunch, knocked on his door. No answer. Mrs. Hoffman had a key. They went inside together. The house was neat, orderly, normal. Michael's lesson plans were laid out on the kitchen table for the rest of the week. His dinner dishes from the night before were washed and drying by the sink. His bed was made. His toothbrush was in the bathroom. But Michael's winter coat was gone, and his boots were gone, and Michael himself was gone. In February in Montana, you don't go far without a coat and boots. The temperature that week was hovering around 20 degrees, with snow on the ground and more in the forecast. Search parties checked every trail in the surrounding mountains, every frozen creek, every cabin and shed and outbuilding in a 20-mile radius. They found nothing. Not a track. Not a trace. Not a clue. Michael Reeves had simply stepped out of his life as completely as if he'd never been there at all. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out slowly. Let these stories settle into your consciousness like snow settling on a quiet town. Our final disappearance takes us to Oregon, to a coastal town called Haven Point, where fog rolls in every evening, and the lighthouse has been automated since 1987. In July of 2001, a woman named Grace Mitchell, age 42, walked out to that lighthouse one evening to watch the sunset, something she did several times a week, a habit everyone who knew her recognized. She never came back. Her car was found in the lighthouse parking area the next morning. The lighthouse keeper found her camera on the rocks near the water, still on its strap, undamaged. But Grace was gone, swallowed by the fog or the sea, or the mystery that seems to hover over these places, these moments, these inexplicable vanishing points. 5 towns, 5 people, 5 mysteries that remain, even now, unsolved and perhaps unsolvable. As you drift towards sleep, let these stories remain with you, not as puzzles to solve, but as gentle reminders of the world's vast unknowability, of the way some questions remain unanswered, some absences unexplained, some mysteries eternal and strangely comforting in their refusal to resolve. And so we turn now to what remains, to the evidence, the physical traces, the objects left behind when people simply disappeared from these quiet American towns. There is something deeply meditative about examining these artifacts, these silent witnesses to absence. A shoe by the railroad tracks, a coffee cup, still half full, resting on a kitchen counter, unopened mail accumulating behind a door. These are the things investigators photograph, catalog, preserve in evidence bags with careful hands and furrowed brows. These are the things that speak in whispers, if they speak at all. In the case of Sarah Mitchell, the waitress who vanished from that Nebraska diner in 1987, what remained was remarkably ordinary. Her purse, left behind in her locker at work, containing $17, a compact mirror, breath mints, and a folded grocery list. Her car, parked exactly where she always parked it, in the gravel lot behind the diner, keys still in the ignition. The investigators found her apartment undisturbed, bed made with hospital corners, dishes washed and drying in the rack, a library book about coastal lighthouses open face down on the arm of her sofa, holding her place at page 43. Page 43. She never finished that book. It was returned to the library eventually, by someone else, checked back in with that page forever unread by the person who had begun the story. The coffee cup is what people remember most. It sat on the counter of the diner for hours after she disappeared, before anyone thought to mark it as evidence. Half full, coffee gone cold, a lipstick mark on the rim, a faint impression in dusty rose, the color she always wore. The coffee had been poured fresh at 10:47 p.m., according to the cook who was working that shift. By 11:15, Sarah was gone. 28 minutes. In 28 minutes, the coffee cooled and a woman vanished, and the cup sat there as silent testimony to an interrupted moment, a pause that became permanent. When we think about evidence, we think about clues, about answers, about the way objects can tell us what happened. But sometimes evidence only deepens the mystery. Sometimes what investigators find only makes the absence more profound. The hardware store owner who disappeared, Marcus Chen, remember, who left his keys in the lock. The evidence in his case formed a portrait of intention interrupted. He had been in the middle of closing up for the evening. The cash register had been counted, the deposit bag prepared and zipped shut. The lights in the back of the store had been turned off, one by one, following his usual pattern. His coat had been removed from the hook by the back door. Everything suggested a man going through his familiar routine, a routine he had performed thousands of times. And then between the back office and the front door, somewhere in that ordinary transition, he simply ceased to be there. The keys in the lock, turning or about to turn, or just turned. A threshold uncrossed. A door neither fully open nor fully closed. These details circle in the mind like water circling a drain, around and around, never quite resolving. The shoe by the railroad tracks. It belonged to Thomas Webb, the postal worker who disappeared in Montana in 1993. A single brown leather work boot, size 10, found on the gravel shoulder beside the tracks, 15 miles from his route, from anywhere he had any known reason to be. The boot was worn but well maintained, laces tied, no sign of struggle or damage, just a boot. Sitting there, waiting. His truck was found nearby, pulled off to the side, engine cold, keys on the driver's seat arranged in a neat pile. Why would someone remove their boot? Why just one? These questions echo through the investigation reports, through the minds of the sheriff's deputies who walked those tracks for miles in both directions, finding nothing else. Nothing at all. Just one boot, and questions, and the wind through the prairie grass, and the trains that kept running on schedule, indifferent to the mystery beside their rails. Evidence, we learn, is not always enlightening. Sometimes it is simply present. The unopened mail, for instance. In 3 of our 5 cases, mail had accumulated. Letters, bills, advertisements, all the ordinary paper debris of modern life, piling up in mailboxes or behind mail slots, creating small mountains of the mundane that testified only to absence. In Sarah Mitchell's mailbox, investigators found 2 weeks' worth of mail when they finally thought to check. Catalogs, mostly. Credit card offers. A postcard from her sister in Colorado, the message side reading simply, "Thinking of you. Weather is beautiful. See you at Christmas." Christmas came and went. The postcard remained, unread, preserved now in a filing cabinet in a sheriff's office in Nebraska, a small rectangle of cheerful illustration and interrupted communication. There is something hypnotic about inventorying the ordinary. The investigators' reports read like strange poetry, listing item after item, object after object, each one cataloged and described with careful precision. In Marcus Chen's hardware store, one register receipt dated March 15, 1991, timestamp 5:43 p.m., purchase of wood screws and sandpaper. One deposit bag, contents counted and verified. One coat, gray wool, size medium, hung on hook. One pair of reading glasses, wire-rimmed, found on desk in back office. One calendar, open to March, with appointment noted on the 18th. Dentist, 2 p.m. An appointment he would never keep. The dentist's office called to confirm 2 days before. The phone rang in an empty store, or perhaps it didn't ring at all. Perhaps by then someone had thought to unplug it, to silence the increasingly eerie sound of a phone ringing for someone who would never answer. The boot. Let us return to the boot, because it appears again and again in the case files, photographed from every angle. You can see it in the evidence photos. Dusty brown leather against gray gravel, the railroad tracks running parallel in the background out of focus. It is such a specific thing, a boot. Not a shoe, not a slipper, but a work boot. The kind a man wears when he has a physical job, when he spends his days on his feet, carrying mail bags, walking routes, covering miles. Thomas Webb's wife identified it immediately. "That's Tom's boot," she said, and began to cry. It was his left boot. The right boot was eventually found in his closet at home, paired with nothing, waiting. The left boot stayed in evidence. The right boot stayed in the closet for years, she later told reporters, because she couldn't bear to throw it away, couldn't bear to look at it, couldn't bear to leave it with its partner missing. Two boots, separated by mystery, by miles, by the inexplicable circumstances of vanishing. Circling back now, gently, to the coffee cup, the lipstick mark, the color called dusty rose according to the manufacturer's label on the tube found in Sarah's purse. The investigators tested the coffee eventually, though it had long since grown cold and begun to develop a film on its surface. Nothing unusual, just coffee. Cream, no sugar. The way Sarah always took it, according to the cook. The cup itself was diner standard issue, white ceramic, thick-walled, designed to keep heat. But heat dissipates. Everything cools, everything changes state, given time. The coffee cooled in its cup, and somewhere between one moment and the next, Sarah Mitchell stepped out of the diner and into nowhere, into the great unexplained absence that would come to define her, to replace her, to become her story. In the case files, details repeat. Investigators return to the same objects, the same measurements, the same timelines. They photograph the coffee cup from multiple angles. They measure the volume of liquid remaining, approximately 4 ounces. They note the temperature of the coffee when finally tested, room temperature, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. They describe the counter where it sat, laminate, color called harvest gold, with a thin crack running from the edge to the center. Unrelated to the case, but noted anyway. Because everything must be noted, everything observed, everything recorded in the hope that somehow some pattern will emerge, some answer will surface from the accumulated weight of detail. But sometimes there is no pattern. Sometimes there is only the evidence, mute and mysterious, offering nothing but its presence, its stubborn there-ness, its refusal to speak in any language investigators can understand. The reading glasses found on Marcus Chen's desk had a small scratch on the left lens, barely visible unless you held them up to the light at just the right angle. This detail appears in the evidence report, noted by someone with careful eyes and steady hands. Why note such a thing? What possible relevance could a scratch on a lens have to a disappearance? But this is the nature of investigation, of searching for answers in a landscape of mystery. Everything might matter. Every detail might be the one that unlocks understanding. So the scratch is noted, measured, photographed. It remains a scratch on a lens, nothing more, nothing less. A tiny flaw in glass that once helped a man see more clearly and now sits in an evidence bag, helping no one, clarifying nothing. We might pause here in this gentle exploration of objects and evidence to consider what it means to leave things behind. We all leave traces of ourselves everywhere we go. Fingerprints on door handles, hairs on coat collars, scuffs on floors from our shoes, the particular indentation our bodies make in the furniture where we sit. We are constantly shedding evidence of our presence, our passage through space and time. But when someone disappears, these traces take on an almost unbearable significance. They become the last proof that someone was here, was real, was solid and physical and present in the world. The lipstick mark on the coffee cup becomes precious in a way it never was when Sarah Mitchell pressed her lips to the rim on an ordinary Tuesday night in 1987. Then it was nothing, barely noticed. Now it is everything. Now it is preserved, protected, examined, photographed, the last impression of her physical presence in the world as we know it. In 1995, in a small town in Virginia, a woman named Patricia Holloway disappeared after dropping her daughter off at school. Her car was found in the grocery store parking lot, driver's side door slightly ajar, her grocery list on the passenger seat. Milk, bread, eggs, chicken, lettuce, tomatoes. The handwriting was neat, the paper torn from a notepad with a floral border. In the back seat, investigators found her daughter's forgotten lunchbox, a pink plastic container with a cartoon character on the lid, containing a peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, and a juice box. The sandwich was still fresh. This detail appears again and again in reports about the case. The sandwich was still fresh, as though freshness mattered, as though the state of a sandwich could tell us anything about where Patricia Holloway had gone or why. But perhaps it does tell us something. It tells us that no time had passed, or very little time. It tells us that whatever happened, happened quickly. The sandwich did not have time to grow stale. The bread did not have time to dry out. Between fresh and stale, a woman vanished. We return, as we must, to the boot by the railroad tracks. Thomas Webb's boot. Let us imagine the investigators finding it, that moment of recognition when something ordinary becomes evidence. Someone walking the tracks, perhaps, searching, and there it is, a boot sitting on gravel. How long do you think they looked at it before they bagged it, before they photographed it, before they called it in? Did they know immediately that it mattered, or did they hesitate, wondering if it was simply a boot lost by some passing traveler, unrelated to their search? But no, the laces were tied. People don't lose boots with tied laces. Shoes slip off, yes, sandals come loose, but boots with tied laces stay on feet unless deliberately removed. So someone removed it. Thomas Webb removed it, presumably, though we cannot know for certain. Removed it and left it there, and then... what? Walked on in one boot and one sock, walked on barefoot, flew away, dissolved into air. The boot offers no answers, only its presence, its brown leather reality against gray gravel, and the questions multiply around it like ripples in still water. The clock on the wall of Marcus Chen's hardware store had stopped at 6:17. Evening. The store officially closed at 6. Marcus always stayed a bit later to close out the register, to prepare the deposit, to tidy up. 6:17 p.m. was well within his normal routine. But the clock had stopped. Not dramatically, not shattered or fallen from the wall. It had simply stopped ticking. The battery had died, perhaps, or perhaps something else. Investigators tested it later, replaced the battery. It worked fine. It kept time normally. But on that March evening in 1991, at 6:17, it stopped. And now that time, that moment, is frozen forever in the case file. In the photograph of the store's interior taken by police, the clock hands pointing to 6:17, pointing to nothing, pointing to the moment when perhaps everything changed, or when nothing changed but the absence began. Evidence photographs have a particular quality, a particular stillness. They are not like other photographs. They are taken with different intent, with clinical precision, with careful attention to scale and light and context. In the files of these 5 cases, there are hundreds of such photographs. The coffee cup, shot from above, shot from the side, shot with a ruler placed beside it for scale. The boot from every conceivable angle, each photograph documenting the same object, but somehow each one slightly different, as though by looking from different perspectives, by shifting the angle of view, something new might be revealed. But the boot remains a boot. The coffee cup remains a cup. Objects ultimately are only themselves. They cannot speak except in the language of their existence, their physical presence, their stubborn refusal to be anything other than what they are. Let us consider, in this gentle meditation on evidence, the things that were not found. This is equally important, perhaps more so. In the case of Thomas Webb, the postal worker with one boot missing, investigators searched for hundreds of hours. They walked the railroad tracks for miles. They searched the surrounding prairie with dogs, with volunteers, with aircraft flying low overhead. They searched for his body, for his clothes, for the other boot, for his wallet, for anything at all. They found nothing. In the vast landscape of Montana, in the big sky country where you can see for miles in every direction, they found nothing except that single boot by the tracks. The absence of evidence is its own kind of evidence, though what it testifies to remains unclear. It suggests no struggle, perhaps. It suggests no violence, no confrontation, no dragging of bodies through brush that would leave traces. It suggests what? Ascension? Dissolution? Voluntary departure so carefully planned that nothing was left behind except what was meant to be found. The questions circle like birds, never landing. Sarah Mitchell's apartment, when investigators examined it, was almost eerily tidy. The bed made, as we have said, the dishes clean, the book holding its place at page 43. But there was more. Her clothes were organized by color in her closet. Her shoes were lined up in neat pairs. Her bathroom counter held exactly 5 items: toothbrush in a cup, toothpaste, hairbrush, facial moisturizer, and that tube of lipstick, Dusty Rose, the same shade that marked the coffee cup. 5 items, no clutter, no mess, no disorder. What does this tell us? That she was neat, organized, a person who valued order. But it tells us nothing about where she went or why. Perhaps it makes the mystery deeper, actually. People who value order don't usually vanish without planning, without preparation. But there was no evidence of planning. No packed bags, no withdrawn money, no bus tickets purchased, no forwarded mail arrangements. Just order, maintained up until the moment it wasn't, until she ceased to maintain it, because she ceased to be there. The grocery list found in Patricia Holloway's car has been analyzed repeatedly. Handwriting experts confirmed it was hers. Psychologists studied the items listed, looking for hidden meanings, for patterns, for anything that might suggest state of mind. Milk, bread, eggs, chicken, lettuce, tomatoes, ordinary items, a normal shopping trip. No messages hidden in the list, no secret codes, no meaningful pattern beyond the mundane rhythm of family life. She needed these things. She was going to buy them. She never did. The list remains, ink on paper, intentions preserved but never fulfilled. Sometimes investigators return to these objects as though they might have changed, might have developed new properties, might finally be ready to reveal their secrets. But the list remains a list. The words remain words. Milk is still milk. Bread, still bread. The paper has aged slightly, perhaps, the ink faded just a little, but it says what it has always said, and nothing more. In Marcus Chen's hardware store, the arrangement of keys tells a story, or seems to. The store key's on a ring, inserted in the front door lock from the outside. The position of the key suggests turning, the motion of locking up. But there were other keys on the ring. His car keys, house keys, a small key to a safe deposit box. All there, all together, all left behind in that lock. A person leaving voluntarily, planning to disappear, might take their keys, might need them wherever they were going. But these keys stayed, mid-turn, mid-gesture, suspended in the act of closing up shop. The hand that turned them is long gone. The keys remain, bagged as evidence, labeled and stored, and occasionally taken out for review when someone reopens the case, when someone new looks at the old evidence with fresh eyes, hoping to see something that everyone before them missed. But the keys keep their secrets. Metal shaped to fit locks, to open and close things, but unable to open or close this mystery, unable to lock away the questions or unlock the answers. As we near the end of this examination of evidence, of these physical traces left behind in small towns across America, we find ourselves returning again and again to the same objects. The coffee cup with its lipstick mark, the boot on the gravel, the keys in the lock, the unopened mail, the grocery list with its simple items. These objects have become almost sacred in their ordinariness, transformed by absence into something more than they were, into symbols of the great unknowable mystery of disappearance. They sit in evidence rooms now, some of them, or in storage boxes, carefully preserved against decay, against time, against the natural entropy that claims all physical things. They are protected, maintained, held in a kind of suspended animation, waiting for the day when they might finally be allowed to speak, to tell their stories, to reveal what they witnessed. But perhaps they have already told us everything they know. Perhaps there is nothing hidden, no secret meaning, no coded message. Perhaps a coffee cup is simply a coffee cup, left behind when someone walked away. Perhaps a boot is simply a boot, removed for reasons we will never understand. Perhaps keys in a lock are simply keys in a lock, frozen mid-turn by circumstances beyond our comprehension. Perhaps evidence, ultimately, is just evidence of existence, of presence, of the moment before absence. And perhaps that is all it can ever be. We look for meaning because we need meaning, because the alternative, that things simply happen without reason, without explanation, without any larger pattern or purpose, is too uncomfortable to accept. So we study the coffee cup, we measure the boot, we photograph the keys from every angle. We circle these objects like pilgrims circling a shrine, hoping for revelation, hoping for understanding, hoping for peace. The book Sarah Mitchell was reading, the one left open at page 43 on the arm of her sofa, was about lighthouses, coastal beacons, towers of light in darkness, warning ships away from danger, guiding them to safety. Investigators read the book eventually, looking for clues, for connections. They found a story about a lighthouse keeper in Maine who disappeared from his post in 1885, leaving his light burning, his breakfast half-eaten on the table, his door standing open. An old mystery, echoing forward through time. Did Sarah read that particular story? Was she thinking about it when she disappeared? Was there some connection, some pattern, some meaning in the parallel? Or was it simply a book, simply a story she was reading to pass the time, to fill the quiet evening hours of a small-town life? We cannot know. She read to page 43, and then she set the book down, face down to hold her place, and she went to work her shift at the diner, and she never came back to finish the story. The book was returned to the library. Someone else borrowed it, perhaps. Someone else read beyond page 43, finished the story, closed the book, returned it in turn. The cycle continued. Life continued. But for Sarah Mitchell, time stopped somewhere between the diner and her apartment, between the coffee cup and the bed she would never sleep in again. Thomas Webb's wife kept his right boot in the closet for 7 years before she finally donated it to Goodwill. She told a friend about this decision, about how hard it was, about how it felt like a betrayal somehow, separating the boots forever, giving up the right boot to strangers when the left boot sat in evidence somewhere. But she couldn't keep it anymore. She couldn't keep walking into the closet and seeing it there, alone, waiting for a foot that would never fill it, for a partner that would never return. The boot was probably thrown away eventually, probably ended up in a landfill somewhere, leather slowly breaking down, returning to the earth. The left boot remains in evidence. 2 boots, 2 fates, separated by mystery and miles and the simple passage of time. The evidence speaks in whispers, if it speaks at all. It says, I was here. Someone was here. Something happened here, or ended here, or began here. I am proof of presence, of existence, of a moment in time when everything was still normal, still ordinary, still explicable. And then I became evidence, became artifact, became the last physical connection to someone lost. Handle me carefully, preserve me, study me. I am all that remains. I am the coffee cup, the boot, the keys, the mail, the list. I am the punctuation mark at the end of a life that never wrote its final sentence. The pause that became permanent, the question that remains unanswered. I sit in evidence rooms and storage boxes, waiting in the dark, patient as only objects can be patient, eternal in my silence, mysterious in my refusal to reveal more than I am. And what I am is simply this: evidence of absence, proof of vanishing, testimony to the mystery that cannot be solved, but only perhaps slowly accepted as we drift toward sleep, toward dreams, toward our own quiet surrender to the unknowable. And so we turn now to those who were there, who might have seen, who thought perhaps they witnessed something in the margins of these disappearances. The witnesses. They come forward slowly, hesitantly, with memories that shift like shadows in late afternoon light. A gas station attendant in Nebraska, her name was Doris, and she worked the evening shift at the Texaco on Highway 30, and she remembers, or thinks she remembers, a woman who might have been the missing waitress, stopping for gas around 7:30 that October evening. Or was it 8? The time grows fuzzy now, blurred by the passage of years, softened by doubt. Doris recalls the woman wore a blue jacket, or perhaps it was gray. The color has faded in her memory the way colors fade in old photographs left too long in sunlight. She paid in cash, Doris is certain of that. Or mostly certain. The certainty itself has weathered over time, eroded by countless interviews, by investigators asking again and again, "Are you sure? Are you certain? Could you be mistaken?" And perhaps she could be. Perhaps she is. The memory bends and flexes, becoming less solid with each recounting. There was a trucker too, a man named Vernon, who drove the routes through eastern Nebraska in those years, who told police he saw a car pulled over near the state line that same night. The hazard lights were blinking, he said, a slow, rhythmic pulse of amber in the darkness. He almost stopped. He thinks about that often now, how he almost stopped but didn't, how he continued on because he was running late, because the CB radio crackled with other voices, because he thought someone else would help. The car was a sedan, he told them, dark-colored, maybe blue, maybe black, maybe it wasn't even the same night. Time has a way of compressing events, of folding one evening into another until they become a single memory made of many. In the small town where the hardware store owner vanished, there were neighbors. There are always neighbors, watching from windows, noticing things in that particular way that small town residents do. Mrs. Henderson lived across the street, and she sat in her front room most evenings, the television on low, her hands busy with needlework, her eyes occasionally drifting to the window. She saw him leave the store that evening, she's quite sure of that. She saw him lock the door. Or did he? Because the keys were found still in the lock, weren't they? So perhaps she saw him start to lock it. Perhaps she looked away before he finished. Memory is like water, flowing around the shapes of what we think we know. She remembers it was getting dark. The streetlights had just come on, casting their pale amber glow across the empty main street. He walked toward his truck. She's certain he walked toward his truck. But then Mrs. Henderson's phone rang, or perhaps she needed to check something in the kitchen, and when she looked again, the street was empty. Just empty. The truck still parked, the keys still hanging. The evening settling into night as it always did, as it always does in these small towns where nothing ever happens until suddenly something does. And then that something becomes the thing that defines all the years that follow. These witnesses, they carry their testimonies like stones, smooth and worn from handling. They've told their stories so many times, to police, to reporters, to neighbors, to themselves in the quiet hours. And with each telling, the edges soften a little more. The details shift just slightly, until what they remember and what they think they might remember become impossible to separate. But still they try. Still they offer what they have, these fragments of perception, these glimpses from the periphery, hoping that somehow their small piece of the puzzle might matter, might mean something, might help. And perhaps it does. Or perhaps these memories are just echoes, sounds bouncing off the walls of the past, growing fainter as they travel forward through time toward us, toward this moment, toward sleep. There were others who saw things too, or who believed they did in the way that witnesses do, with varying degrees of certainty that themselves shift and change like light through leaves. In the town where the librarian disappeared, a teenage boy named Marcus told investigators he'd been skateboarding past the library that afternoon, around 4 or maybe 4:30, and he'd seen her through the window, shelving books in the back section. He remembered the methodical way she moved along the stacks, remembered thinking how peaceful it looked, that slow, careful placement of books in their proper places. But when pressed for details, Marcus faltered. What was she wearing? He couldn't say. Was anyone else in the library? He didn't think so, but he couldn't be sure. He was moving, after all, rolling past on his skateboard, and it was just a glimpse, just a moment, just something he saw without really seeing. And yet that glimpse became important, became part of the official timeline, became a marker in the investigation. Librarian seen alive at approximately 4:30 p.m., approximately. That word does so much work, holds so much uncertainty within its syllables. Approximately 4:30, which could mean 4:15 or 4:45 or any of the minutes in between. Marcus grew older, went to college, moved away from that small town, but he carries that memory still. The librarian in the window, shelving books, there and then not there, present and then vanished, and his testimony one of the last supposed sightings of her solid existence in the world. In another town, another case, a woman named Alice who ran the post office remembered sorting mail the morning the young teacher disappeared. Alice had a package for her, something small that required a signature, and she'd set it aside thinking the teacher would come by later as she usually did, stopping in around lunchtime to check her box. But that day she never came. The package sat there for days, then weeks, waiting. Alice would look at it sometimes, at the neatly printed address, at the return label from some bookstore in a distant city, and wonder what was inside. Something the teacher had ordered, something she'd wanted, something she never received. Alice's testimony isn't about seeing anything unusual. It's about absence, about the routine that was interrupted, about the mail that went unclaimed. But somehow that absence itself became a kind of witnessing. The witnesses gather in our minds like this, one after another, each with their small offering of observation. The man who owned the diner in that Nebraska town, he remembered, the waitress seemed distracted her last shift, kept looking at the clock. Or did she? He thinks she did, but she might have just been tired. It was a long shift. She'd worked a double. Or was that a different night? The memories blend together now, all those shifts, all those evenings of serving coffee and pie to the same customers at the same counter. He wants to help. He tries to remember anything unusual, anything different. But maybe there was nothing. Maybe it was just another ordinary shift ending in the most extraordinary way possible, with vanishing. A postal worker in the town where the hardware store owner disappeared told police he'd noticed a strange car parked on Elm Street that afternoon. Strange because he knew everyone's vehicles in that small town, could identify them at a glance, and this one was unfamiliar. It was a sedan, he thought, or maybe a coupe, light-colored, or possibly dark. The more he tried to remember, the less certain he became, the details scattering like dandelion seeds in wind. He'd been walking his route, delivering mail as he did every day, and he'd noticed the car the way you notice anything out of place in a familiar landscape. But he hadn't stopped to look closely. He'd simply noted it and moved on, assuming it belonged to someone visiting, someone passing through. And maybe it did. Maybe it was entirely unconnected to anything. Maybe it was just a car, parked on a street, meaning nothing. Or maybe it meant everything. There's no way to know now. The car is gone. The moment has passed. Only the uncertain memory remains, soft and pliable as clay. The testimonies layer upon each other, creating a landscape of half-certainties and gentle doubts. Each witness offering what they have, what they think they have, what they might have. And the investigators listen, recording it all, these fragments of human perception, knowing that somewhere in this collection of maybes and possiblies and I think so's, there might be truth. Or there might be nothing but the human need to participate, to matter, to have seen something in a world where most of us see very little beyond our own small circles of daily routine. There was a woman who lived alone at the edge of one of these towns, in a farmhouse set back from the road, and she told police she'd heard a car engine idling late one night, sometime around the time of one of the disappearances. She couldn't say which night exactly. The nights all run together when you live alone, when one day is much like another, marked only by the rising and setting of the sun and the programs on television. But she remembered the sound of that engine, how it sat there rumbling in the distance, too far away to see but close enough to hear, and how it made her uneasy in a way she couldn't quite explain. She'd gotten up, looked out her window into the darkness of the fields, seen nothing, just darkness, just the usual shadows of the rural night. And eventually the sound stopped, and she went back to bed and thought nothing more of it until the police came asking questions about that week, that time, that string of nights when someone vanished. Was the car connected? Did it mean something? The woman didn't know. She offered her memory humbly, apologetically, aware that it might be nothing, that it probably was nothing. But it might have been something, and in the absence of certainty, might and maybe are all we have. They are the materials from which we build our theories, our timelines, our attempts to understand what happened in those lost hours when someone was there and then was not. A waitress at a truck stop along Interstate 80 remembered serving coffee to a woman who might have been one of the missing. This was years ago now, decades even. But she remembers because the woman seemed nervous, kept glancing at the door, asked if there was a payphone. The waitress pointed to the phone on the wall by the restrooms, and the woman walked over, made a call, spoke quietly for a few minutes, then hung up and left. Didn't even finish her coffee. The waitress found it later, still half full, gone cold. She might have poured it out and thought nothing of it, but then weeks later, when she saw the missing person flyer, she thought maybe, possibly, perhaps that had been her. The timing was right. The description matched, or close enough to match, or maybe not. Memory is such an unreliable witness itself, showing us images that might be accurate or might be composites, constructed from suggestion and hope and the desire for our experiences to matter. There are so many of these accounts, collected in boxes, filed in folders, recorded in interview transcripts that sit in evidence rooms growing older and more brittle with each passing year. A teenager who saw someone walking along the highway. A farmer who noticed his dog barking at something in the woods. A store clerk who sold cigarettes to a man asking directions. Each person coming forward, offering their small piece of the picture, their brief intersection with events that might be significant or might be entirely ordinary. The investigators sort through it all, looking for patterns, for connections, for the one detail that might illuminate everything else. But mostly what they find is the beautiful, frustrating complexity of human observation, how we all see the world through our own particular lens, how memory shifts and changes, how certainty is rarer than we'd like to believe. And the witnesses themselves, they continue their lives in these small towns, carrying their testimonies with them. Some think about it often, wondering if they missed something, if they should have noticed more, if they could have prevented what happened. Others rarely think of it at all, except when reminded, when an anniversary comes around or a reporter calls, or they happen to drive past the place where they saw whatever it was they saw. But it's there, a small weight in their history, a moment when they brushed against mystery, when they became part of something larger than themselves, something that remains unsolved, unexplained, open like a question waiting for an answer that may never come. The stories the witnesses tell begin to echo each other, not in their specifics, but in their shape, in their texture. They all have that same quality of uncertainty, that same soft focus around the edges. I saw someone, I heard something, I remember, or I think I remember. The words repeat, forming a kind of chorus, a meditation on the limits of perception. And as we listen to them, as we let these testimonies wash over us, they become almost soothing in their repetition, in their gentle acknowledgement that we cannot know everything, that some things remain unclear, that mystery is simply part of the fabric of existence. There was a night clerk at a motel. He remembered checking in a couple the evening before one of them was reported missing. Or he thinks it was the evening before. It might have been 2 nights before. The days blur together when you work night shifts. When you watch the same stretch of parking lot under the same fluorescent lights, when one traveler is much like another. But he remembered them because they seemed tense, speaking to each other in short, clipped sentences. Or were they just tired from driving? He couldn't say now. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it. People are often tired, often tense. Travel brings out strain. But later, when the questions came, he wondered if he'd witnessed something significant, a relationship in crisis, the last hours before whatever happened happened, or maybe he'd just witnessed 2 tired people checking into a motel, nothing more. His testimony joined the others in the file, another piece of the puzzle that might fit or might not, that might reveal something crucial or might simply be background noise, the ordinary static of daily life that surrounds us all. Because that's the challenge, isn't it? Separating the signal from the noise, the meaningful from the mundane. When we look back at any given day, there are hundreds of small interactions, observations, moments. Most mean nothing. But when something terrible happens, we search through all those moments desperately, hoping to find the one that explains everything. And sometimes it's there, but often it's not. Often there are just moments, just life proceeding as it does, until suddenly it doesn't. Another witness, a man who worked at a grain elevator, told police he'd seen a car that matched the description of one belonging to a missing person, parked along a county road about 10 miles outside of town. This was early morning, just after dawn, and he was driving to work as he always did, taking the same route he'd taken for years. The car stood out because it was parked at an odd angle, partially in the ditch, as if it had been abandoned in a hurry, or as if the driver had pulled over for some other reason. Car trouble, maybe, or to check a map, or to make a phone call when cell service finally appeared. The witness slowed down as he passed, considered stopping, but he was running late and the car was empty anyway. No one inside, no signs of distress. So he continued on. And when he heard about the disappearance, days later, he called the police, told them what he'd seen, drove back out to show them the location. But by then the car was gone. No evidence it had ever been there except his memory of it. Was it the right car? Was it connected? The witness believes it was, believes his sighting mattered, and perhaps it did. Or perhaps there's a completely innocent explanation. The car belonging to someone else entirely. Someone who had a flat tire, or stopped to sleep, or pulled over for any of 1,000 ordinary reasons before driving on. We want the pieces to fit together. We need them to. Our minds are pattern-seeking instruments, always trying to make sense of chaos, to find connections, to build narratives. And so we take these scattered observations and we arrange them, we create timelines and theories. We say, this must mean that, and that must have led to this. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe some things are just random, just coincidental, just the noise of a complicated world. The witnesses know this on some level. You can hear it in their voices when they give their statements. That apologetic uncertainty, that acknowledgement that they might be wasting everyone's time, that what they saw might be nothing. But they come forward anyway, because not coming forward feels worse, feels like a betrayal of some kind, like a failure to help when help might be needed. And so they offer what they have, these imperfect observations, these fragile memories, and they become part of the record, part of the ongoing attempt to understand what happened in these small towns, on these quiet streets, in these ordinary moments that became extraordinary. And so the witnesses fade slowly, gently, back into their lives, back into their routines, back into the ordinary flow of days that carries all of us forward whether we wish it or not. Their testimonies remain, preserved in files and recordings, in the careful notes of investigators, in the memories of the cases that could not be solved. They did what they could. They saw what they saw, or thought they saw, and they spoke of it. And that is all any of us can do. Really, offer what we have, what we perceive, knowing it is incomplete, knowing it is flawed, knowing that human observation is a limited thing bounded by attention and memory, and the simple fact that we cannot be everywhere, cannot see everything, cannot know with certainty even the things that happen right before our eyes. The gas station attendant, Doris, she still works sometimes at that same Texaco, though it's under different ownership now, though the pumps have been updated and the prices have climbed year by year. She sometimes thinks about that evening, about the woman in the blue or gray jacket, about whether it was really her, whether Doris's testimony helped at all, or just added one more uncertain element to an already uncertain investigation. She's made peace with not knowing. She's had to. We all do, eventually, when we live long enough, when we accumulate enough experiences that resist easy explanation. We learn to live with mystery, to accept that some questions have no answers, or at least none we can access, none we can hold with confidence. The trucker, Vernon, he retired from driving 5 years ago. His routes now traveled by younger drivers who navigate by GPS and barely use the CB radio that once connected a community of voices across the highways. He thinks sometimes about that car with the hazard lights, about how he didn't stop, about the what-ifs that haunt us all when we wonder if we could have made a difference. But he's old enough now to know that what-ifs are a road that leads nowhere, a loop that circles back on itself forever. He did what he did. He didn't stop. He cannot change it. And he lives with that the way we all live with our small regrets, our moments of inaction, our choices that might have been wrong but cannot be unmade. Mrs. Henderson still sits in her front room most evenings, though she's older now, moving more slowly, her eyesight not what it was. She still glances out the window sometimes at the hardware store across the street, now closed permanently, the building for lease, its windows dark. She still remembers that evening, the streetlights coming on, the figure she saw or thinks she saw, the moment before the vanishing. It's become part of the landscape of her memory, one piece among thousands, some clear and some fading, all of them together forming the terrain of a long life lived in one place, in one small town where very little happens, except when it does. And all the other witnesses too, they carry their pieces forward into time. The teenage boy on the skateboard, now a man with children of his own, the woman who heard the car engine in the night, the motel clerk, the postal worker, the waitress at the truck stop. They've all grown older, as we all do. Some have moved away, some have stayed. Some have forgotten their brief brush with these mysteries. Some think of it often, but all of them continue, living their lives, which are full of so many other things, so many other moments and memories and daily concerns that have nothing to do with those old disappearances, those cold cases, those unsolved mysteries. And maybe that's as it should be. Maybe that's the only way to go on. To let these things be part of our story without becoming the whole story. To acknowledge what we witnessed or think we witnessed. To offer it to those who might make sense of it. And then to continue living. Continue moving forward through time toward our own horizons, our own unknowable futures. The mysteries remain, the questions linger. But life also continues, gentle and persistent as a river, carrying us all along whether we have answers or not, whether we saw clearly or only dimly, whether we know or merely wonder. And in that continuation, in that gentle flowing forward, there is something soothing, something peaceful, something that allows us to release our grip on certainty and simply be, simply exist, simply let the story unfold as it will, witnessed imperfectly by imperfect observers, remembered softly, gently, as we drift now toward sleep, toward dreams, toward that nightly mystery we all enter willingly, that temporary vanishing we all embrace, eyes closing, breath slowing, consciousness releasing its hold on the visible world and surrendering to the soft, dark comfort of the unknown. And so we wake into another kind of sleep, the sleep of waiting, the quiet vigil that stretches across years in these small towns where mysteries took root and never bloomed into answers. Time moves differently here, in these places where someone vanished. It moves slower, thicker, like honey dripping from a spoon on a cold morning. The calendar pages turn, yes, one after another, month following month, season giving way to season, but underneath that measured progression, something remains frozen, suspended, held in place like an insect in amber. The diner in Nebraska still serves coffee every morning. The hardware store in Missouri closed for a time, eventually reopened under new management. The gas station still pumps fuel for passing travelers. Life continues as it must, as it always does, flowing around the absence like water around a stone. But the absence remains. The question remains. And so the families wait. They wait with a patience that becomes its own kind of wisdom, its own spiritual practice. They wait through summer heat that shimmers on empty parking lots, through autumn leaves that drift down onto sidewalks no one thought to sweep, through winter snows that cover everything in forgiving white, through spring thaws that reveal the world again, unchanged, still holding its secrets close. The waiting becomes routine, becomes normal, becomes simply the texture of daily life in these towns. People learn to live alongside the mystery, to make room for it at their tables, to acknowledge it with a nod as they pass the place where it all began. Years pass, 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10, 20. The numbers grow, but the waiting feels the same. Constant, patient, neither hopeful nor hopeless, but something in between, something softer, something that has learned to breathe slowly and steadily through the endless not knowing. Every year they gather, these families, these friends, these townspeople who remember. They gather on the anniversary, marking time, marking memory, keeping vigil in the way humans have always kept vigil, with candles, with silence, with presence. In Nebraska, they meet at the diner where she worked, where she tied her apron strings and poured coffee for the morning regulars, where she smiled and called everyone honey or sweetheart in that effortless way some people have. They meet there each October, fewer of them now as years accumulate, but still they come. They light candles, they speak her name, they remember. In Missouri, they gather at the hardware store, standing on the sidewalk where he parked his truck every morning for 30 years, where he turned the key in the lock at 6 a.m. sharp, where he knew every nail, every screw, every tool by heart. They gather there, and someone always tells the story again, how his keys were still in the lock, how the door stood open, how he simply wasn't there. The story gets told the same way every time, with the same pauses, the same details, the same quiet wonder at the impossibility of it all. And this repetition is not boring or tiresome. It is ritual, it is prayer, it is the way communities hold on to what matters. The vigils follow a pattern, gentle and predictable. Someone brings flowers, carnations or roses, whatever the season offers, whatever the grocery store has that day. Someone brings photographs, edges worn soft from handling, colors fading into that universal golden tone that all old photographs eventually find. Someone speaks, someone remembers, someone cries perhaps, or perhaps they're past crying now, settled into a deeper kind of sadness that doesn't need tears, that simply exists like background music, always playing softly. And then they stand together in silence, and the silence is comfortable, is shared, is enough. They stand as the light fades, as the streetlights flicker on one by one, as the ordinary evening settles over the town like a blanket, soft and familiar and endlessly patient. The storefronts age gracefully, or not so gracefully, depending on the economics of small-town life. Paint peels and gets repainted or doesn't. Windows collect grime and get cleaned or don't. Signs fade under decades of sun and are replaced with new signs, slightly different, never quite matching the original. But the bones remain the same. The doorways stand in the same places. The sidewalks crack and buckle, but continue their same paths down the same streets. These towns change slowly, so slowly you might not notice unless you left and came back after many years. Then you'd see it, how the pharmacy became an antique shop, how the movie theater closed and became a church, how the restaurant changed hands 3 times but the booths are still the same red vinyl, patched now with duct tape, still serviceable, still holding their shape and their memories. Time is visible here in layers, like rings in a tree trunk. You can almost read the decades in the architecture, in the faded advertisements painted on brick walls, Coca-Cola signs from the 1950s, grain elevator logos, phone numbers with exchange names instead of all digits. These ghost signs, they're called, and the name is fitting. They're ghosts of commerce, of daily life, of ordinary moments that once meant something to someone. And among these gentle ghosts of ordinary time, the mystery lives too. Part of the landscape now, part of the town's identity. This is where she disappeared, this corner, this unremarkable place that looks like 10,000 other corners in 10,000 other towns. This is where he was last seen, driving past this intersection in his pickup truck, hand raised in a wave to someone who waved back, the last gesture, the last moment, the final frame before the film breaks. And there is only blank white light, only absence, only the long, slow afterward. The buildings remember perhaps, the bricks and mortar, the wood and glass, perhaps they hold some record we cannot read, some testimony in a language we have not yet learned. Or perhaps they are as puzzled as we are, as silent, as patient in their unknowing. The seasons turn and turn again, and the turning becomes a meditation, a rhythm so natural and inevitable that it soothes rather than saddens. Spring comes to these small towns with its green promises, its optimistic light, its flowers pushing up through soil that remembers everything, that holds everything, that keeps its counsel. Crocuses bloom in yards, daffodils line walkways, trees burst into tender leaf, and for a few weeks, everything feels possible again, feels new. Feels like perhaps this year will bring answers, will bring closure, will bring that call from a detective saying they've found something, they understand now, they can finally explain. But spring gives way to summer, as it always does, and summer settles in with its long, drowsy days, its heat that makes time move even slower, that makes even thinking feel like effort. Kids ride bikes down the same streets where mysteries unfolded, their laughter unchanged across decades, the sound of childhood somehow immune to history, to tragedy, to the heavy questions adults carry. Fireflies blink in the dusk, sprinklers hiss and tick, screen doors slam. Life persists in its beautiful, ordinary way. Then autumn arrives with its slanted light, its gentle cooling, its reminder that all things pass, all things change, all things return to earth eventually. Leaves turn gold and red and orange, and people who live through the disappearances see these colors every year and think the same thoughts they thought last year and the year before. Thoughts about time, about loss, about how strange it is that beauty and sadness can exist so completely in the same moment, the same breath, the same glance at a tree burning golden in October light. And winter comes, finally, winter with its stillness, its hush, its snow that covers everything and makes the world simple again. Reduces it to basic shapes, to white and gray and the dark lines of bare branches against pale sky. In winter, the towns grow even quieter. People stay indoors. Smoke rises from chimneys. The mysteries seem to sleep too, seem to hibernate under the snow, waiting, always waiting for the spring that will come again, that always comes again, that brings no answers but brings itself, which is perhaps enough, which must be enough, which has to be enough to continue. Memory and patience become one thing, become the same practice, the same gentle discipline. The families remember, and in remembering they are patient. They are patient, and in their patience they remember. The two cannot be separated anymore. They have learned what perhaps we are all learning slowly in our own ways, that not everything resolves, not everything explains itself, not everything comes clear in the final pages. Some stories remain open, remain unfinished, remain questions rather than answers. And there is a peace in this, strange as it sounds. There is a peace in accepting the mystery, in living alongside it, in letting it be what it is, without forcing it into shapes it will not take. The families have learned this peace. You can see it in the way they move through their days now, decades later. There is sadness, yes, always sadness, a sadness that has become part of who they are, as essential as their eye color, their laugh, their way of speaking. But there is also life. There is also joy when joy finds them. There is also love and work and meals and conversations and all the ordinary beautiful things that make up a human life. The mystery does not consume them anymore. It is simply there. A room in the house they do not enter often but know is there. A room where candles stay lit, where photographs remain forever young, where time stopped but somehow also continues. And perhaps this is what we need to hear as we drift towards sleep ourselves, as we surrender to our own daily mystery, our own brief disappearance into dreams. Perhaps we need to know that it is possible to live with unanswered questions, to be at peace with uncertainty, to find rest even when nothing is resolved. The towns sleep now, these small towns scattered across rural America, these places where mysteries took root and grew into something almost beautiful, something almost like wisdom. They sleep under the same stars that watched when the vanishings happened, the same moon that offered no answers then and offers none now. And in their sleep they wait, and in their waiting they sleep, and the two are the same, gentle and endless and somehow comforting, somehow enough, somehow exactly what we need as our own eyes close, as our own breath slows, as we too vanish softly into sleep, into patience, into the long quiet wait for morning. And so we find ourselves here in the deep quiet hours where all the stories blend together like watercolors in the rain, where Nebraska becomes Iowa, becomes Kansas, becomes everywhere and nowhere, where the vanished waitress and the missing hardware store owner and all the others walk the same empty streets in our minds, their footsteps echoing softly on pavement that remembers everything and nothing at all. The wind moves through these towns tonight, just as it moved through them in 1987 and 1992, in all the years between, a constant presence, patient and eternal, whispering through the same alleys, rustling the same leaves on the same trees that have grown older, thicker, more knowing. Listen to it now, that wind, how it carries no answers but somehow feels like comfort, how it asks no questions but somehow understands everything, how it simply moves, breath-like through the darkness, touching each streetlight, each storefront, each locked door with the same gentle indifference, the same soothing neutrality. The streetlights hum their electric lullaby, that low buzz that becomes almost musical when you listen long enough, when you let it sink into your consciousness like warmth into cold hands, like sleep into waking, like mystery into acceptance. These lights have watched everything, have illuminated every search party, every hopeful return that never came, every anniversary, every vigil, and they continue watching still, patient as stars, constant as time, glowing their amber and sodium glow across empty intersections where stop signs face no traffic, where painted lines guide no cars, where everything waits in perfect suspended stillness. The diner sits dark now, has sat dark for hours, will sit dark for hours more until dawn creeps slowly across the horizon. And even then, the darkness inside will linger in corners, under tables, in the spaces between memory and forgetting. The hardware store, too, its windows reflecting only night, only the ghost of streetlight, only the subtle movements of wind-stirred leaves and the occasional passing of clouds across the moon. These buildings hold their secrets so gently, like mothers holding sleeping children, protective and silent and infinitely patient, knowing that some things need darkness, need quiet, need the soft embrace of unsolved mystery to truly rest. And we rest too, don't we? Here in this moment, here in this deep pocket of night where all the towns become one town, where all the mysteries become one mystery, where all the waiting becomes simply the texture of existence, normal as breathing, natural as sleep. The names come back to us now, soft as prayer, gentle as rainfall, each syllable a small stone dropped into still water, creating ripples that expand and fade and are somehow beautiful in their fading. Sarah, who served coffee and pie, whose apron hung on its hook for months after, whose smile people still remember in that vague dreamlike way we remember things we've almost forgotten but can't quite let go. Thomas, who knew the name of every nail, every screw, every tool in his carefully organized store, whose system made sense only to him and now makes sense to no one. A private language lost when he walked out into the afternoon and didn't return. Margaret, Daniel, Robert, Susan, the names accumulate like snow, soft and cold, and somehow comforting in their accumulation. Each one a small mystery, each mystery a small eternity, each eternity folding into the next, like waves, like breath, like the countless nights that have passed since they disappeared into wherever the vanished go. We say their names quietly now, not as questions anymore, but as acknowledgments, as gentle recognitions of absence, as lullabies for the missing and the found alike. For we are all missing in our way, all vanished into our own private mysteries, all walking streets that others cannot see. The numbers too, 1987, 1992, 1995, 2001, they blur together, become less like dates and more like poetry, like a counting song for the sleepy, for those of us drifting between waking and dreaming, between remembering and forgetting, between the need for answers and the deeper need for rest. 43 years old, 27 years old, 56 years old. Ages that meant something once, that defined people, that carried weight and significance, but now float freely, disconnected. Just numbers in the dark, just data points in a mystery that has transcended data, that has become something larger and softer, and strangely more beautiful than any spreadsheet of facts could contain. The locations too, they merge and blend. The railroad tracks become all railroad tracks. The diner becomes every diner, the parking lot, the back road, the edge of town. These places exist everywhere now, in every small town, in every quiet corner of rural America. In every mind that has wondered what it means to simply vanish, to step out of one moment and never into another, to leave behind only questions and the gentle ache of not knowing. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps that's all we need as we sink deeper into our pillows, into our blankets, into the warm darkness of our own safe rooms. Just the knowledge that mystery exists, that some things remain beautifully unsolved, that the universe still contains pockets of the unknown that no amount of investigation can fully illuminate, and that this is not frightening but soothing, not troubling but calming, a reminder that we don't have to understand everything, that we can let go, that we can simply drift, simply float, simply surrender to sleep, and trust that the mysteries will still be there in the morning, patient and eternal, waiting without urgency, existing without demanding resolution. The wind continues, patient as time, moving through these streets with the rhythm of breathing, in and out, back and forth, present and eternal, asking nothing, offering only its constant presence, its gentle reminder that movement continues even in stillness, that life persists even in absence, that the world turns regardless of what we understand or fail to understand. Listen to it moving past the stop sign at the corner of Main and Birch, past the telephone pole with its layers of stapled notices now weathered into illegibility, past the bench where someone waited once, waited for a bus or a friend, or simply for time to pass. That bench still there, still waiting, still serving its purpose even when no one sits upon it. The streetlights continue their hum, that electric meditation, that mechanical mantra, steady and unwavering, a sound so constant it becomes silence, so persistent it becomes invisible, so reliable it becomes comfort. They cast their pools of amber light in the same patterns they've cast for decades. Light and shadow, illumination and darkness, the eternal dance of the visible and the hidden. And we understand now that both are necessary, that both are beautiful, that the shadow gives meaning to the light, just as the mystery gives meaning to the known. The storefronts reflect these lights, their dark windows becoming mirrors, becoming portals, becoming canvases upon which the night paints its subtle variations of darkness, its gradients of shadow, its infinite shades of not quite black that range from charcoal to navy to the deep purple of 3 a.m. That hour when the night is most itself, most honest, most willing to reveal its true nature as not the opposite of day but as day's complement, its necessary partner, its equal. Inside these stores, merchandise sits in perfect stillness. Cans on shelves, clothes on hangers, tools in drawers, everything waiting for morning, for customers, for the resumption of commerce and conversation and the ordinary transactions of ordinary life. But here now, in this suspension of ordinary time, these objects take on a different quality, become more than merchandise, become artifacts, become evidence of human hope and human routine and human belief in tomorrow. Each item placed with care, with purpose, with the assumption that someone will come, someone will need, someone will buy, someone will continue the story. And they do, and they will. And the story continues, even as some chapters remain unfinished, even as some pages are missing, even as the binding grows loose and the words fade, but the essential narrative persists, adapts, transforms, becomes not a story about solving, but a story about living with the unsolved, about making peace with mystery, about finding comfort not in closure but in continuation, in the simple fact of persisting, of going on, of waiting without desperation, of existing without demanding explanation. The railroad tracks stretch into darkness, parallel lines converging somewhere beyond vision, beyond knowing, leading somewhere we cannot see, coming from somewhere we've forgotten, serving their purpose regardless of whether trains pass, regardless of whether anyone watches, regardless of whether their significance is remembered or lost to time. They simply are, as the wind simply is, as the night simply is, as mystery simply is, patient, eternal, content to exist without justification, without narrative, without the need to be anything other than what they are, which is enough, which has always been enough, which will always be enough. And so the hours pass, one into another, seamless and gentle, measured only by the slow arc of stars across the sky, by the gradual shifting of shadows as the moon makes its patient journey, by the internal clock of body and breath that knows without knowing when to deepen, when to slow, when to finally let go of the day and embrace the night fully, completely, without reservation or resistance. In these towns, in all these small towns scattered across the vast middle of America, the streets remain empty, beautifully empty, peacefully empty. Empty in a way that feels not like loss but like rest, not like abandonment but like respite, not like ending but like pause, like the space between breaths, like the silence between notes that gives music its meaning, its structure, its soul. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, a single sound that carries across the stillness, that travels block after block with nothing to stop it, nothing to absorb it, and then fades, and then is gone, and then is remembered only as the idea of a sound, the ghost of an interruption that somehow made the silence deeper, more tangible, more present. A car passes on the highway that borders the town, its headlights sweeping briefly across a water tower, across a grain elevator, across the proud signs that announce population numbers that may or may not still be accurate, that declare founded dates and community pride, and the names of service clubs, and the year the high school won the state championship, in something that mattered very much then and still matters now, in the way that all past glories matter, quietly, privately, in the hearts of those who were there, who remember, who carry those moments like smooth stones in their pockets, touching them occasionally, drawing comfort from their solidity, their realness, their proof that things happened, that life was lived, that joy existed and therefore can exist again. The mysteries remain, of course. Sarah and Thomas and Margaret and all the others, their absences still present, still felt, still marking the landscape like standing stones, like monuments to the unknown, like reminders that not everything can be explained or solved or tied neatly with string and filed away. But somehow, here in the deep night, here in this hour that belongs neither to yesterday nor tomorrow but exists in its own eternal present, the mysteries feel different, feel softer, feel less like wounds and more like scars, less like questions and more like koans, those unsolvable riddles that aren't meant to be answered but meditated upon, lived with, absorbed slowly over years until they become not problems to solve, but truths to accept, not challenges to overcome, but companions to acknowledge, to sit with, to allow their presence without demanding their departure. We can rest with them, these mysteries, can let them be our lullaby, can let their unanswered questions become the rhythm of our breathing, in and out, known and unknown, here and gone, present and absent, all the dualities that define existence softening, blurring, becoming less important as sleep approaches, as consciousness begins its nightly dissolution, as we prepare to vanish into our own small mystery of dreams, that place where we all disappear for hours each night and return each morning changed in ways we cannot articulate, carrying memories we cannot quite grasp, having traveled to places we cannot locate on any map. And so we vanish, gently, gratefully, knowing we will return, trusting the process, surrendering to the mystery of sleep, just as these towns surrender to the mysteries they contain, just as the night surrenders to the inevitability of dawn, just as all things surrender eventually to the larger patterns, the deeper rhythms, the eternal cycles that care nothing for our understanding, but everything for our participation. Sleep now, sleep as these towns sleep, sleep as the mysteries sleep, sleep as the wind sleeps between gusts, as the streetlights sleep behind their electric glow, as the stories sleep between tellings, as all things sleep in their own way, in their own time, surrendering to the universal need for rest, for restoration, for the temporary release from being known, being defined, being anything other than present, breathing, existing in the simplest possible way. The names fade now, Sarah becoming a whisper, Thomas becoming a sigh, Margaret becoming barely a breath, all of them dissolving not into forgetting, but into a different kind of remembering, the kind that lives in the body rather than the mind, that resides in feeling rather than fact, that exists as texture rather than detail, as atmosphere rather than information. The dates, too, they blur and soften, 1987 becoming simply then, becoming simply once, becoming simply the past that holds all pasts, that contains all moments that have already happened, that vast ocean of was into which all our days eventually flow, where they remain somehow, where they continue somehow, where nothing is truly lost, because everything simply changes form, changes state, becomes memory, becomes story, becomes the material from which we build our understanding of time, of life, of the strange and beautiful fact of existence itself. The streets are empty, and they are full, empty of people but full of presence, empty of answers but full of questions that have ripened into something sweeter, something gentler, something that nourishes rather than gnaws, that comforts rather than troubles, that invites rather than demands. Listen to them, these empty streets. Listen to what they say in their silence, in their patient waiting, in their absolute acceptance of whatever comes and whatever doesn't, of who returns and who remains gone, of what is solved and what stays mystery. They speak in the language of endurance, of continuation, of the simple dignity of being here, of serving their purpose, whether witnessed or not, whether celebrated or forgotten, whether understood or simply accepted as given, as background, as the stage upon which life performs its countless small dramas and comedies and tragedies and mysteries. And we are sleeping now, are already halfway into dreams, are drifting between the world of these small towns and the world of our own inner landscapes, those places we visit nightly, those territories that belong only to us, that answer to no one, that follow their own logic, their own rules, their own mysterious purposes. We float there, suspended, neither here nor there, neither awake nor fully asleep, but in that liminal space where both exist simultaneously, where the boundaries dissolve, where a Nebraska diner can exist in the same moment as your childhood bedroom, where a missing waitress and your own grandmother can somehow be the same person, where time becomes geography and geography becomes feeling and feeling becomes the only truth that matters. Sleep deeper now, let go completely, release your hold on needing to know, on needing to understand, on needing anything other than this moment, this breath, this soft darkness, this gentle dissolution of self into rest, into peace, into the mystery that claims us all each night and releases us each morning, faithful as the tide, reliable as the stars that watch over these small towns, over these empty streets, over these unsolved mysteries, that are somehow, in their unsolvedness, their incompleteness, their eternal openness, exactly perfect, exactly right, exactly what we need them to be as we finally fully, gratefully sleep. Thank you for listening tonight. If this story helped you drift off, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more calming stories. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you next time.